Got Mount Olympus shrouded in cloud behind me. I'm sat on the tailgate of the Landy by the sea. Had a dip in the sea, had a shower. There's showers here, public showers. And this old guy comes over to me, makes a bit of small talk, tells me, can't communicate much English, but he told me that he was working on a ship and that he'd been to Newcastle and Sunderland. And then he brought me one of these. I think this is a pomegranate. I'll be embarrassed, very embarrassed if that's wrong. But it's really nice. The seeds are really refreshing. It's the small things. Wasn't going to confess to camera either, but when he gave it me, I went to bite into it like an apple. He must have thought I was a right idiot. And he said no. He showed me, he broke it open and just sort of shuffled the seeds out into his hand and ate them. So just shows you how westernized we can sometimes become and forget how to eat fruit properly. So I reached the Turkish border last night at midnight. Surprise, I'm now not in Turkey. I'm in Greece still. So what happened? Well, before coming on this road trip, myself and my wife had made the decision to move to Turkey. We have a dog, and I've drove the dog over with a different car about 2 months ago now. I've then left that car in Turkey. It's my wife's car, it's under her name, it's just I drove it over. That car is still in Turkey. Now, what the customs at the border have said is that because that car's still in Turkey and it's under my name, that I can't drive another car into Turkey, regardless of whether it's under my wife's name or not. So that has really put me in a bit of a dilemma, as you can imagine. Not a good situation. So I'm now sat in Greece on a Sunday. My wife's not able to speak to anyone at the customs office. Stop. Very apt sign for this situation. Not really sure entirely what to do next. I think the plan is now I'm going to see out the rest of the video in Greece, do my spearfishing here. Just gonna have to see what we can do and see this trip out. This Land Rover will not feature in Holland Cross Road Trip in Turkey, which is ironic because that was kind of the crux of what I was doing. But I better get on my way and get doing some spearfishing. So I've done a little Google Maps recce, and I think this is going to be as good as it gets in terms of landscape. It looks amazing, but it's obviously more going to be down to the fact whether it's going to be good for spearfishing. And the pros here are, it's the middle of nowhere, it's very rural and there's not many people about. So it won't be overfished. Not a lot we can do other than just give it a try and see what happens. Certainly got a good backdrop. There is a peninsula just there. I think I might give that a try just because it's going to be more out the wind. Well, I'm done checking out this peninsula. and I found somewhere to pitch up, probably where I'm going to stay for the duration of my time. Long story short, since I've been here, I've relocated up out of the beach, just in case I ran my battery flat. At least I could get a jump start if I'm somewhere accessible. And if I'm down on the beach, if you don't own a Land Rover or a pickup truck, you're pretty much not getting down there because it's quite steep. But it appears that this beach has another purpose, and I will leave it to your imagination on what the purpose of this beach is. But here's a hint: there's a lot of naked old men down there. So I'm going to relocate. I'll still use the peninsula for fishing because it does look good for that, but I don't think I'm going to be parking here. So I've been out for a morning swim on my first day here. It's calm as anything. It's like a lake, which is good, and the sea is perfect for what I want. I should also take you a tour of my new camping spot, and this is a lot better. It's actually a municipal camping place, and I think that just means government owned. There's a few camper vans here, and also there's freshwater showers, which is pretty handy. I'm gonna start getting to grips with my paddleboard and use that as a little bit of a recce to get about the place. Time spent on reconnaissance is seldom wasted, and so my intentions here were just generally see what's going on the seabed, orientate me nicely, parts to avoid if it's just an open sandy area, just to save me swimming around. Just counter the seagrass is always greener effect, so I'm not chasing, looking for the best location when I'm swimming about, and I've seen the whole area, I know where's good, and that I need to just focus on what I'm doing, focus on where I am. So before I go out, I thought I'd go through some of my kit and the simplicity of it, why I've chose it. I'll be using a pole spear. This is a two-piece pole spear. So it just screws together. This one's a 5-prong tip, just makes it easier for smaller fish, and it's loaded by having a grip like this. Your hand moves up the shaft to hold it like that. It's now tensioning the elastic. You aim by bringing it up to your eye, and then when you let go, obviously I'm not going to do that now because I'm not underwater, it propels it forward with the elastic. You have your hand like that and it just catches it. Really simple way of spearfishing, pole spear. Now I do have another tip. This is called a flopper tip, and the idea behind this one is that you shoot, it goes through the fish, the tip comes out and it stops it from coming back through. This is more for larger fish. I chose to go with a pole spear because it's a more pure form of hunting. For you to be able to catch fish with pole spear is a lot more difficult than with a spear gun. It also forces those foundation level skills to be really good, because you have to be a lot closer to the fish with a pole spear. And my stalking, my movement in the water, they're going to be the most important things to enable me to catch fish with this weapon, with this tool. And it is a tool because it's not a weapon. It's a weapon when it gets misused. Up until that point, it's a tool for catching fish. Another thing that everyone should really carry, as it's a safety, is a good knife. So we're in the Mediterranean right now. It's essential that you have something to let boats and other people traffic know that you're about, because when you're out there you don't want to be getting run over by a boat. It's probably the biggest threat to you while you're out there is other people. This flag actually means diver down, internationally recognised, so other people know, not only can they see you, but they know what you're doing. So my lanyard attaches to my float, and the lanyard then attaches to the back of my spear. So attached to my float is this fish line, which I'm hoping gets used frequently as well, might I add. But once the fish has been unalived, simply thread this through its gills and then clip it back on, and the fish is then held on my float, and I can carry on fishing for more fish. So that's a quick overview of my gear, what I'm using. I'm doing it this way because I want to keep it as simple as possible and just enjoy the hunting aspect of what I'm doing. One thing I really enjoyed about soldiering was taking it back to basics, and how it would force you to tune into your senses, your eyesight, your hearing, and the way that you move. Somebody that I really respected when I was training once said to me, you can always tell when someone can soldier because they just know how to move. So sudden movements draw the eye, and it's things like that. If someone's getting up after you've done a stop for a map check, for example, and they're getting up and they're all laboured and they're clanging about, then that's not very good, because it draws attention and it makes you more likely to be seen. If you're getting up and you're slow, moving slow, and you're scanning around, absorbing your surroundings, then that shows that you're a good soldier. That's one part of it. Obviously there's a huge amount of other things to it, but knowing how to move, the most basic thing, is right up there.
Spearfishing brings me on nicely to something that I am fascinated with: time. There's three main aspects of spearfishing where time is paramount important: time going out, time on the bottom, and rest time. The three main things that I'm going to be keeping track of. Huge safety aspect when you're solo diving, that you don't want to have a blackout, which is a fatal incident if you're on your own. Knowing how long I'm diving for, how long I'm spending on the bottom, and then how long I'm spending resting on the surface. If I'm diving for 1 minute, I need to be resting for at least 3 minutes. So while I'm doing this, there's going to be a lot going on. I don't want to add anything else into the mix. In today's day and age, there's a lot of digital watches. They do a lot of different things, like WhatsApp messages. You can pay for things on your watch now, and that's never going to be me. I just don't like that. I don't want another thing to have to charge, another thing to have to discipline myself not to look at and go on like I would a phone when it's not appropriate, because you have to manage that now. One way to manage that is just to take it out of the equation. And I've always liked analog watches. That is what I will be sticking with. The other thing is, everyone should own a good watch at least once in your life. And for me, about 10 years ago, I bought this watch. I just got into the parachute regiment and I wanted to treat myself with a watch. So this is the first proper watch that I ever owned. And it stayed on my wrist for the last 10 years. And it aged really well. It is a bit dated now. One thing that made it weather well was the fact that the glass was sapphire crystal. So when looking for a new watch, my criteria would be, and has been, that it must have sapphire crystal glass, which is where this watch then comes in. This is a Sterling Durant, which is one of the sponsors to these videos. And Sterling are a brilliant watch brand as well. They're a military watch brand, and they give 10% of their profits to combat stress. And as a brand owner myself, running a business about flannel shirts, 10% of your profits going to a charity is a huge amount, so massive respect to Sterling for that. And I'm just going to go over a few of the features why I'm going to use this specifically for spearfishing. A bezel, which is very simple and clean, and use it in conjunction with the second hand, which is conveniently highlighted in red. So I'll twist it round, ready for my dive, and then I'll dive as soon as it gets to the arrow, and then I can then forget it. And as I'm on my way back up, I check my watch again, and wherever the second hand is, say it's on 45, then I know that I've been down for 45 seconds, and I'll need about 4.5 minutes of rest on the surface. So that's how I use the dive bezel. Now the actual face doesn't have any numbers on it, which is perfect for me because I don't want the numbers to confuse me when I'm tracking only the seconds on the bezel. This watch comes with a Zulu strap. I like the aesthetic of this. It looks just brilliant. With quite a large watch on a Zulu strap is a great look in my opinion, and so I'm absolutely chuffed to have this on my wrist for this road trip.
Now, there'll be 3 methods of spearfishing that I'll be looking to employ. The first one is aspetto. That's an Italian word, which you can see me doing here, which roughly translates to I wait. In layman's terms, you lay on the bottom and then you wait for the fish to come to you through their own curiosity to be able to then spear them. Being an inexperienced spearfisherman, this is literally my first time doing it. I'm going to give everything a bit of a try just to see what works for me and what works in each area. I like the idea of waiting on the bottom because I don't like chasing the fish around and tiring myself out when I'm not completely conditioned for this sport just yet. Another method is hole hunting, which is a really good one for beginners and particularly for me with a pole spear, because if the fish is in the hole, it's probably not going to be moving around, so it'll be easier for me to spear it. Once you're settled on the bottom, there's a few things that you can do to draw them in, like making noises with your vocal cords or rattling metal.
So a fairly good first day, although no catch. A lot of the people that I've seen go out spearfishing, which has been about 2 or 3 now from here, tend to stay in the shallows, but a lot of those people are after octopus. I have seen a few octopus closer in the rocks, but it's not something that I'm personally going to go after, because I think I'm going to try again tomorrow and earlier in the morning. I'm going to take the paddle board with my spearfishing kit and just go further out. I think I need to be deeper to get some bigger fish.
Further out, I really did start to feel a bit out of my depth, pun intended. This was a long way down for me. I don't know exactly how deep this was. I'm sure if you're an experienced spearfisherman, you could comment and say it looks about 10 or 15 metres, but it was at the limit of my capabilities. At this location, just due to the ground, I thought it best to employ my third and final tactic or method, agguato, another Italian word which roughly translates to dynamic ambush. Using this technique, your intentions are to get comfortable on the bottom and then use your hand to slowly drag you along the bottom. And it is supposed to be your hand. You don't want to be kicking your feet, as this might spook and scare the fish. And we want to move gently to draw them in as we're slowly moving along the bottom. I think the biggest factor for me here was my equipment, and that with it being more open ocean style and deeper, it would be harder for me to get close and there's less rocks to hide behind.
So, first long proper dive finished this morning. I was in the water for about 3 hours 15 minutes. So I went a lot further out on the paddleboard, as far as the depth that I was comfortable diving at. And I can conclude that further out I saw very little, to be honest. Speaking to some locals last night who very kindly brought me a beer, and we had a chat, and one of them was advising, an Austrian guy actually, who's living out here now for the last 25 years. He advised me that the flatfish were a really good one to go for, but I've spent a lot of time in the sandy areas this morning and haven't been able to find any. I have been invited to a dinner with a Turkish Greek guy and the Austrian guy tonight, and I said I'd try and get them a fish, which is so far failed miserably. Well, I've been in and out of the sea a few times now, and no joy. There's a lot of fish, but they're just too small, really. Not the size that I'm going for. I've seen a couple of larger, like mullet and bass, but can't get anywhere near them, and there's not many of them. I might have to be calling time on this with having not caught a fish by spear. This road trip has been set back a couple of times for a week long in France, waiting for a drone. A couple of days when I first arrived in Greece, waiting for some disc brakes for the Land Rover. I've got a hard stop coming soon where I need to be back in the UK, and this has put a change to things, not getting into Turkey, because now I've got to drive back and not fly back. Obviously the flight, half a day and I'm back in the UK, whereas now I'm looking at a 3-day trip really. I mean, the ferry from Greece to Italy is 21 hours. I'm going to need to start closing down here soon, moving on back to the UK and saying goodbye to this crazy place. It's going to be over. One thing that's really took me by surprise on this trip is the constant hospitality that I've received. A bit windy now. The constant hospitality that I've received whenever anything's gone wrong. The people that I've ended up talking to have just been amazing. I got talking to this Austrian guy and another guy that he was with, who was a Turkish man living in Greece. There's quite a lot of Turks here, to be fair, which is good, because then it breaks down a bit of language barrier for me. I don't speak any Greek, but I speak a bit of Turkish. I digress, and the hospitality that I've received. I was invited out for a meal with the Austrian guy, and it was to the restaurant owned by the guy that he was with, the Turkish guy, and the food was amazing. And we had a mixture of various different meats. We had an octopus that the Austrian guy had caught one day previous. A lot of alcohol. We drank beer and ouzo and something else that was like a Greek snaps. Now, I didn't really want to ruin the moment by just getting the camera out, and I like to keep times like that authentic. I don't have any video or anything of it. The most I've got is these couple of pictures. Even this morning after the meal, Francis, the Austrian guy, has brought me a bag of pomegranates for breakfast, which is not the first time I've received pomegranates on this trip. Now, there's not a lot that I can give to these people that they want. They've got everything that they need in life. They live a very simple, happy life here. So the only thing that I can do is just leave something behind for them to remember me by, and just as a thank you for having some of the best food that I've had in a long time, and drink, and some really good company. So when I first met these two guys, they were down on the beach at this freshwater spring tap thing that's on the beach here that I've been using. They come down here most days just for like a 30-minute chat, and that's how I got talking to them. I'm going to be leaving this little thank you note on my Ollam card under a stone. I'm also going to be most sad about saying goodbye to one of my closest friends while I've been staying here. This guy's been nicknamed Feathers. and he loves a belly rub.
I do truly actually want to come back to this area because it has been amazing. Not in the way that I expected in terms of spearfishing, but more in the way of meeting with the local people and talking to them, spending time with them was something that I wasn't expecting but happy to have done, and has been a great highlight and end to this trip. My turnaround point, and there's my mileage, 206,224 miles, and I'm about turning back to the UK.